Hey everyone, this is your midday pause with purpose. So I want you to take a breath, let your shoulders drop. And today we're not rushing, we're reflecting. Today I want to talk about something that quietly shapes decisions, limits growth, and keeps many people, especially single moms, stuck without realizing why. So go ahead and grab your pen or notepad, and we're going to take copious amounts of notes. Or if you just want to sit in the room, it's okay just to sit in the room and allow the message or allow the conversation to reframe your thinking, reframe your emotions, reframe your mindset to shift you into a place of identity and purpose and vision and dreams and hopes and ideas and prosperity. We just want the room to flow the way that it needs to flow, to give what it needs to give without any rushing, without any extra fluff or any extra, emotional words that sometimes tend to only be there to help or assist in creating a response that really isn't how you're really feeling. So we're just going to allow this room to flow the way that it needs to flow. So let me know where you're tuning in from. Utilize the comments. This is what I want you to do. I would love for you to utilize the comment section in this, wherever you're tuning in from on YouTube or Facebook. I welcome you all into this space, and I want you to utilize the comments, not just so that I can read, but so that others who may be joining in can read any inspirational thoughts that you may receive and you want to share along the way, any nuggets, any gems, any aha moments, any me too moments. This comment section is a very powerful tool that we are wanting to utilize to create an environment where growth happens, where cultivation happens, where inspiration takes place, where new ideas are formulated, where innovative ideas are also formulated. So this is our purpose for the comment section, and I just want you to know that this is here for your use to add value to the room. So we want to talk about, this place that limits growth and keeps many people stuck without realizing, keeps many single moms stuck without realizing it. And when I came across this word myself, when I came across this, this idea myself, it was like, what what in the world is identity foreclosure? That is what we're talking about. This is what I want to um, allow us to digest and to chew on together, right? It's called identity foreclosure. And you may be having that exact same curious facial expression that I had when this came across my table as well. And we're going to lean into it just a moment. We're going to push into it just a moment. And before that word intimidates you, let me say this clearly. This is not about blame. This is about awareness. And so if you're feeling a sense of guilt, if you're feeling a sense of condemnation, less than, um, emotions that are trying to evade your thoughts, evade your life during this particular, live stream, I want you to know that condemnation comes from your heart. It is not where you are, it's your conscience. And you can allow that to either cause you to elevate yourself, or you can succumb to it and cause that guilt to eat you alive and you run away from the possibility of growth and the possibility of renewing or reclaiming your identity, um not allowing your identity to go into a foreclosed state, right? So I want you to be aware that this space is not for conviction. This space is not for condemnation. This space is for growth. This space is for cultivation. This space is for maturation on a greater level. So identity foreclosure happens when a person commits to an identity before fully exploring who they are allowed to become. I'm going to say that again because that was like when I was writing and understanding what identity foreclosure, of course, my mind automatically went to foreclosure on a home. And that began to, speak to me on so many different levels as well, thinking about foreclosing on a home. And if I had time to really break this down the way I see it, we would be on here for hours. And I only have 30 minutes with you to share and to invite you into this space so that your eyes can be open to where you are and why you are where you are and what can we do to move from where we are in a healthy manner. How does that sound? If this sounds like this is the vibe that you need, this is the space that you need, I need you to drop a yes, yes in the comments. The first yes is just saying, like, I hear you. And the second yes is solidifying your growth, solidifying your I can, solidifying your reclamation, solidifying your transformation. So again, we're going to talk about the what is identity foreclosure. So this happens when a person commits to an identity before fully exploring who they are allowed to become. And I want you to let that sit for a moment. I want you to allow those words to speak to you. And how are you observing those words with where you are, with where you're going, with your past and where you've come from? How are you allowing these words to shape you right here and in this moment? When I heard these myself, I was like, let me write, let me go through and look at those different places where I may have at some point in my life foreclosed on my identity. It's when life circumstances, pressure, pain, or responsibility force you to decide who you are too early, and then you stop questioning it. So this can look like I'm just a single mom. I'm no good with money. I've never been the disciplined one. This is just how my family is. These words are giving absolutes or making a judgment call or making stating a claim or before allowing you to really explore these different statements that you have made about yourself or allow someone to make about you. I'm just this. I'm no good with this. I've never been the disciplined one, or I've never been in this place. This is just how my family is. Now, none of those statements are facts. If you, none of those statements are facts. They are closures. They are closures. Many of us were praised for survival, not exploration. Many of us were praised for survival, not exploration. And again, use the comment section. If we need to run something back, let me know we need to run something back. If you need to allow something to sit with you and say, Kristy, hold on for a moment. I need this to sit. I need to sit with this before we move on forward. Let me know in the comment. Just say, let this sit. Okay, let this sit. And we can allow the information, the message, the focus, the theme to marinate in, and you rehearse it and you allow it to penetrate you and you observe it so you can understand what's really going on. We can understand what's going on in our world and why this is taking place and how and what we can do in order to reclaim our life of abundance, reclaim our identity. We were celebrated for it. we were praised for survival, not exploration. We were celebrated for holding it together, not for dreaming it or dreaming again. We were celebrated. You may have heard words such as "you're strong." You know, I know you can do this. You have such strength about yourself. Good job in this, instead of allowing for exploration, not for dreaming again. So we learn to grab an identity that helped us cope. When we are praised for being a strong single mom, or praised for, look at you're making it happen with just this, praise for being just this or doing it in this way, instead of growth and allowing us to move past that place. It held us to this certain identity. But coping identifies eventually become cages. But coping identities eventually become cages. Now we are in this place of being trapped. What helped you survive one season can quietly limit you in the next. So, what helped you survive one season can quietly limit you in the next. What helped you survive one season can quietly limit you in the next. So, what does that look like? What does that mean? What helped me survive in my, loss of job season? What helped me survive in my loss of vehicle season? What helped me survive in my loss of home season? So we were needing to be in survival mode during those seasons, but those survival modes aren't who we are. That's just a coping identity for that moment, necessary for that season. It's not a lifelong sentence. It's not a lifelong identity. This is how I've been doing this for years. And so it has become a part of my DNA now. It has become a part of my genetic makeup. I have rewritten my DNA language based off a season that I was in, moment that I was in. And now that season has become my identity for these many of years, because I have not rewritten my DNA language so that I am able to, go into dream mode again and vision mode again. And before the vehicle lack of transportation, before financial laws, before single mom, before whatever it is that you had to be in a season of coping and surviving, and now you have come out that season, but you have not changed your language. Your identity has now been attached to that season that you were in. So what helped you survive one season can quietly limit you in the next. It can quietly tell you to not speak loudly, not show up in that way, not pay for this, not buy this. You start to have a limited belief, language. It changes how you speak. Identity foreclosure doesn't mean you chose wrong. Identity foreclosure doesn't mean you chose wrong. It means you chose too soon and never reopen the conversation. Identity foreclosure, I think that's worth saying again, because I want us to hear this well. It doesn't mean you chose wrong. It means you chose too soon and never reopened the conversation. You chose it as an absolute. You chose it as concrete. You chose it as that's the way it has to be. You chose it as this is my life from now on. And you never went back to look at what that moment was actually speaking. We never go back and look at what it was actually teaching us. Was this a rewrite my DNA, rewrite my language, or was this a momentary writing in something that a quick detour for me to, but I'm going to get back on track. I'm going to get back in the right mindset. I'm going to get back in the right emotional healthy place. I'm going to get back in the right, financial mindset, in the relational mindset. So we take a momentary upset or challenge, and we allow it to become a permanent situation, a permanent, identity. How you doing? Here's an observation I see often. Here's an observation I see often, especially with single mothers. Especially with single mothers. Many women make responsible decisions, sacrifice stability, structure, but never return to ask, who am I becoming now? That's a big one. Many women make responsible decisions as sacrificing stability, structure, but never return to ask, who am I becoming now? So growth feels uncomfortable. Change feels disloyal. Desire feels irresponsible. Not because God said no, but because the identity you're operating from was built in a crisis. So, what identity? We want to look at the identity that we are operating from now, and where was it built from? Is this identity meant to travel with me? Is this identity meant to go into my new season? Is this identity meant to go into my new relationship? Is this identity meant to go into this next phase of parenting? Is this identity meant to go into this next phase of being the elite single mom that I know I am, the elite woman that I know I am? Is this identity meant to travel with me? Or is this identity was only meant to serve the purpose that I was in for that moment and that time, because it was necessary then? I had to be responsible in this place. I had to budget. I had to scale back on what expenses that I was taking on. I had to scale back on how often I was traveling, or how often I was purchasing, clothing and shopping, and how often I was, taking lavish vacations, how often I was eating out. So that season of my life was necessary for me to scale back. But that did not mean I take on a scarcity mindset. Be mindful of what type of mindset you're taking on in a momentary season, in a momentary space, in a momentary place, because we don't want that momentary space to identify us the rest of our lives. I can't do this because of this. We take on a limiting belief, a lack mindset, where our words are now speaking from that place, that season that we're in. I don't want to take on bitterness from that season. Just because the relationship didn't go well doesn't mean that I am now a bitter person. You may have a moment of disappointment, of heartbreak, of heartache, but that does not define, that's not your identity. And so we take on these identities from a momentary place, and now that is ruling our life. That is how we look at our, relationships, or people and circumstances. And then we take on, we then begin to connect. It goes into connecting, because we are now connecting with people with that same identity, because this is where now we're identifying ourselves with a bitter mindset, with a harsh mentality, because we have taken on an identity in that moment, something that happened to us in that moment, and now we have identified ourselves, or we are allowing that to identify us. So we have to want to make sure, we want to take back and check and see, who am I becoming now? We want to return. We want to go back. Okay, now I'm out of that place. Now I'm in a healthier place. I am in a healthier place, but I've held on to some languages that I had to, possibly or some languages that was pinned to me in this moment, but this is not who I'm becoming now. So growth feels uncomfortable, change feels disloyal, desire feels irresponsible. Not because God said no, but because the identity you're operating from was built in a crisis. It was built in a moment that, okay, this is what I need to do right now in this situation. Out of a crisis moment, out of between a rock and a rock and a hard place, in a moment where this change is necessary just for this moment. But this doesn't mean I'm going to allow this moment to define me. Here's why identity foreclosure matters. Here's why identity foreclosure matters, because if you don't consciously choose your identity, you will unconsciously defend the one you settled into. If you don't consciously choose your identity, even when you are going through a crisis, even when you're going through a minor setback, even when you're going through relational upsets and misaligned, behaviors in a relationship, that does not define your identity. If you don't consciously choose your identity, you will unconsciously defend the one you settled into. So let me just share some ways or how this looks. You'll resist opportunities that don't match your old story, because now that old identity has become your standard for living, has become your standard for living, has become your standard for, moving ahead or staying where you are, has become your way of life. You'll minimize your own progress because that has become your standard of this is as well as I can do. This is all I'm good for. I can't see no farther than where I am right now. You'll stay loyal to limitations long after they stop protecting you. You will stay loyal to limitations long after they stop protecting you. You defend. You're justified. It becomes your, like, it becomes your identity. It becomes how you identify yourself with. That's not humility. That's unexamined identity. Oh, I don't want to ask for too much. I'm good with, eating this, or no, I don't have to go to a five-star restaurant. I don't have to drive, the best vehicle, because your previous season caused you to humble yourself. And now you feel like, oh, in order for me to live life freely, and I have to keep, playing low. I have to keep dreaming at this. I can't dream no higher. Oh no, an MBA is not for me. A doctorate is not for me. It's okay if I stay in this area of a neighborhood. I don't have to change locations to better myself, or to just because I want more, I desire more. I see myself in a space, in a place where I can eat the good of the land. It's okay for me to stay in this type of relationship. It's okay for me to, because I've learned how to, just be agreeable, be content. I've learned how to just, okay, that's the way the person is. This is the type of, I'm just going to be in this space, because, I shouldn't ask for more, because I know how it feels. I know what it means, like, I know what it looks like. That's not humility. That's unexamined identity. That's unexamined identity. So here's the decision point. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You don't need to discard your past. You simply you simply need to reopen the question. So All you have to do is reopen the question. Reopen, then ask aloud, who am I now? Revisit the conversation prior to. What were your dreams? What were your goals? What was your vision? What life did you see yourself, prior to this challenge, this trauma, this hurdle? How did I see myself prior to this? Being a single mom. Who am I now? What capacities have developed that I didn't have before? What am I still calling not me that might actually be undeveloped, not forbidden? What am I still calling not me? Oh, that's not me. Oh, that's not me. Oh, that's not me. That might actually be undeveloped, not forbidden. We think it's forbidden. Oh, I living in a mansion, living in a 5-story, 5-bedroom, living in a 10-bedroom, driving a Mercedes, driving a Maserati, eating in 5-star restaurants, sleeping on so many count sheets, Egyptian cotton sheets, having this type of relationship, being in this type of relationship with my children, or being promoted to CEO. Oh, that's not me. I just rather be here. No, that's not me. What am I still calling not me that might actually be undeveloped, not forbidden? Growth begins when identity becomes a living conversation again. Growth, you have to talk to yourself. You have to explore opportunities, see the possibilities. Ask God to open up your eyes to see what He sees about your life, and then allow the vision to take place. Allow the dreams that He has for your life, the plans that He has for your life to overwhelm you. Once we identify with a certain season, it will be harder for us to identify with new visions and dreams and greatness and abundance, because we only see ourselves in this state, and it can be overwhelming when God began to flood your minds with, I want you to build a skyscraper. I want you to have the tallest building in this city. I want you to go and own, 15 acres of land, or 30 acres of land, or 1,000 acres of land, because I have a massive plan for you. I want you to build a city. I want you to grow the economy in this area. I want you to, I have this development plan in you that I'm birthing in you, through you, for such a time as this. And we can push those thoughts to the side and count it off. Oh, that's not me. We automatically start to disqualify ourselves because of something that last season you felt like it taught you. It felt like that was your identity. I know how to be humble. Oh, that's too much. That's too big. Because you listen in that moment, you listen to maybe people who weren't aligned with your vision, weren't aligned with your vision. They are only in that moment, in that space, and this is what they know. This is the language that they know. And we're listening to misaligned information. And we're taking that on as though this is how we are to now move forward in our next season. So growth begins when identity becomes a living conversation again. We have to talk to ourselves. You have to write the vision again. You have to make it plain again. You have to reset again. You have to reclaim again. You have to take back again. You have to believe again. You have to receive again. You have to, renew your mind again. All right. Now that this is over, let's get back to it. Let me get my journals back out. Let me read what I was doing and how I was moving prior to this crisis in my life. Let me see how I was dreaming and how I was building, how I was developing, how I was growing prior to this crisis in my life. This is why it is necessary to journal. It is necessary to have a place where you can write the vision of your life. Write down ideas, write down the way that you were speaking to yourself prior to. So when a crisis hits, when a challenge you're faced with for a season comes, and then when it goes, you can revisit the conversation again. What was I telling myself prior to this? Because the word of God lets us know that faith comes by hearing. Now you need to be restored. Your faith needs to be restored. Your faith in you needs to be restored. Your faith in, how you show up needs to be restored, and your dreams and your vision and the plans and your identity need to be restored. So you read the word of God, you read your journal, you read where you were prior to, so your faith can be restored into a place of, this is who I'm becoming. I'm still her. I'm still becoming. This that I went through was simply reframe the places that you have been through as simply an opportunity, as simply part of the journey of your becoming. This is why WYIC exists. We don't rush transformation. We don't force new labels. We create space for reclamation, reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your capacity, reclaiming your right to become. Identity foreclosure ends when curiosity returns. Identity foreclosure ends when curiosity returns. And I am a curious person, and I love inviting people into a place where their curiosity, they say curiosity killed the cat. And if that is something that you're holding on to, that is an identity foreclosure that we need to work on and let go of, and now say, okay, in that moment, why was this said? Why was this phrase spoken to me? Curiosity killed the cat. What does that mean? We have to go back and look at conversations that people had with us, and what we're holding on to that is not of truth. Before we close, I want you to sit with this, not answer. I don't want you to answer it out loud. Just notice what comes up. I just want you to observe what comes up. What identity did you adopt to survive that may not be required to lead your next season? What identity did you adopt to survive that may not be required to lead your next season? What identity that you adopt to survive that may not be required to lead your next season? You're not behind, you're not late, and you're not failing. I believe I would say that again. You're not behind, you are not late, you are not failing. You're just being invited to become again. That's today's WYIC Live Boost. I want you to heal, grow,